I changed careers at 32 to a brand new field without taking a pay cut and without going back to school. But honestly, the way I got here was messy. And knowing what I know now, it would have taken me half the time. The first time I tried changing careers, I thought of becoming a dietitian. I have a biochemistry degree, so I figured, how hard could it be? Well, harder than I thought, because most of my courses didn't transfer. I needed prerequisite classes, and I also needed to be able to secure a practicum placement, which meant I needed to go back to school full-time for a minimum of 2 years. But I really wanted to make this happen, so I ordered my transcripts, I filled out the applications, I got accepted to a few schools. I was so close to quitting my job, packing up my life, and moving to a different city. And then I stopped because I finally asked myself the question that I had been avoiding this whole time. Am I actually passionate about becoming a dietitian, or am I just trying to run away from my current job? I already knew the answer. So instead of uprooting my life, I made a lateral move to a brand new company. Fresh start, same field, everything felt great until about 2 years into that job, and that restless feeling came back again. I found myself creating reports that nobody read, attending meetings that could have been emails, and just generally doing like busy work with no real growth opportunities. So I did what made sense to me at the time. I moved to a different team within the same company, thinking a new challenge would fix it. Well, it didn't, because it ended up being the exact same kind of job, just with a different packaging. So what I decided to do instead was, how about I start applying to roles externally? I ended up landing 2 rounds of interviews, but I didn't get the job, which looking back was honestly a blessing, because deep down I knew I didn't have the energy to start over again somewhere new, proving myself, learning the culture, navigating office politics all from scratch. And that's when it finally clicked. I have been solving the wrong problem this whole time. And what I actually needed was to take a break and not another job. I had been working for over 10 years straight, and I was burnt out. I didn't even know at the time. So I made the decision that scared me the most. I quit my job without another lined up, and my plan was simple, just to rest, travel, and figure out exactly what I wanted for my life and my career. Let me know in the comments, have you ever changed jobs but the same thing ended up happening again in the new job? In my case, I had a year of savings, no debt except my mortgage, and absolutely no idea how to relax and how to rest. I kept telling myself I'm wasting my life by not working, I should be doing something. And then a few weeks into my career break, the pandemic happened. So now I'm sitting at home, no job, a global crisis happening, and wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But instead of letting myself spiral, I got practical. I asked myself one question, actually multiple questions. Is it possible to find a career that uses my existing skills, does not require me to go back to school, and does not require me to take a pay cut? I didn't know how that was possible, but I decided to find out. The first thing I did was to stop looking for a forever career. Instead, I just needed to find something that I could do for the next, say, 5 to 10 years. Something that actually fit who I was becoming. So I started with myself. I took every personality test I could find, the Myers-Briggs, DISC, Enneagram, all of it. I even took it a step further. I asked the people closest to me what they thought my strengths were and what I might be missing. And all of them said some version of the same thing. You are the person that we call when we're stuck. You're the person that we reach out to when we need to solve a problem or to get a different perspective. And that stuck with me. And while I was sitting with that, I stumbled into the world of coaching, completely by accident. I started coaching professionals to pass their project management certification exam, and I really enjoyed it. For the first time in a very long time, the work felt aligned, like I was actually using my strengths to help others make progress. But I also knew that I wanted to explore a more traditional career path. So I started researching what other possibilities were out there, and I landed on IT business analysis. Now, I realized I'd been doing a version of this same thing, just in a different environment, in environmental, health, safety, and compliance. So the challenge for me wasn't that I didn't have the skills, it was how do I make my experience in one field translate seamlessly to another field, and how do I make it make sense to a hiring manager? I did this by finding a contract BA role that was close enough to what I had done before. So I repositioned my experience and landed the job. But the problem is the environment turned out to be wrong, honestly, just wrong. The signs were there before I even started. The role had a high turnover. That should have been my first red flag. And during the interview, the manager mentioned how people really like how they work or they don't like their style, and it's not for everyone. I heard all of that, but I ignored it because I was so desperate to prove that I could make this change. Plus, I was also recovering from burnout. I just didn't realize how exhausted I had been all these years. So a few weeks into that job, I knew it wasn't going to work out. I left. I kept my reason very simple. I gave my 2 weeks notice, and the reason I gave is personal reasons. Most people don't push back when you say you're leaving for personal reasons. And I was so proud of myself for leaving because in the past, I would have stayed and suffered through it for months, trying to convince myself that leaving this early would make me look bad or unprofessional. But not this time. I kept coaching. As my career break was coming to an end, I knew I needed to make yet another decision, what I would be doing next. I didn't want to go back to school, so that wasn't an option for me, but I also knew to be competitive, I needed some more credentials. So the middle ground for me was to get a certification, an industry recognized certification. I got it, and I gave the ITBA career path another shot. And this time it worked out. I landed a role at the exact same pay rates that I had before I took my career break, moving from health and safety and compliance to IT business analysis without ever going back to school and without taking a pay cut or starting over. Looking back, I realized that I kept choosing roles that I had already outgrown, not because they were right, but because they felt safe. I didn't want to have to try something new and then fail or get rejected, and so I wasted a lot of time because I never really stopped to ask myself what I actually wanted. I just kept reacting. And the other thing I had to learn, and this one was harder, is that I'm not in my 20s anymore, and the things that fit when I was in my 20s are not the things that are gonna fit in my 30s, and that's okay. Growth is okay. If that's where you are right now, subscribe, because I'll be sharing more of what I've learned from my own journey and from the women that I work with, so you also can make a career change without all of the guesswork that I had to go through. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.